10 p.m. on Tuesday, November the 2nd, 2021. I'd like to call this General Committee meeting to order. Land acknowledgement. I would like to start by acknowledging the land on which we live and the work is the traditional territory of the Wendat, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe peoples whose presence here continues to this day. Aurora is the part of the treaty lands of the Mississaugas of the Credit and the Williams Treaties First Nations. We acknowledge and thank them for sharing their land with us. A shared understanding of which the rich cultural heritage has existed for centuries and how our collective past brought us to where we are today will help us walk together into a better future. The delegation on tonight's agenda has been withdrawn, so may I please have a motion to approve the agenda, including additional items and the revised by the withdrawn delegation. May I have a first? Councilor Thompson, Mayor Marakis. Any questions or comments on the agenda? Okay, I'll call the vote. All in favor? Opposed? That carries. Any declarations of pecuniary interest or the nature thereof? Seeing none. There will be no community presentations this evening. Delegations, we have no delegations this evening as the delegation was withdrawn. Consent agenda. We have no consent agenda items this evening. We do have advisory committee meeting minutes. May I have a motion to receive the advisory committee meeting minutes from of item 7.1 and 7.2? May I have Councilor Thompson, Mayor Marakis. Any questions to any of the items? Okay, seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. We'll move right along to items for requiring discussion. 8.1 CS21070 final report Town of Aurora Municipal Service Delivery Review. First, we have a presentation by Lauren Wyman, Manager, Strategy Pandya, Consultant, and Jay Manchin, Vice President, Management Consulting of Strategy Corp, Inc. But before we start, we have been asked to allow for an additional 20 minutes for the presentation. I have a motion to permit 30 minutes for the presentation this evening. Councilor Thompson, Councilor Gilliland. Are there any questions? All right, seeing none, may I have all in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Now to the presenters, you're welcome to state your names and be reminded that you have 30 minutes for your presentation.
Well, thank you through you, Madam Chair. Thank you very much for having us all this evening. I am Jay Manchin. I'm a Vice President with Strategy Corp and the engagement lead on this project. With me today, we have Lauren Wyman, the manager for the project, and Strategy Pandya, a senior consultant with the firm. We will share our presentation with you on the screen. We're very excited to be able to be with you here this evening to do so. Our goal will be to provide an overview of the key findings, walk through the process we took to complete this review, speak a little bit about implementation and next steps for the town to consider as it moves forward, and then we will, of course, reserve any remaining time to answer any questions you may have. So before we jump in, I think the first thing that I'd like to cover off is just to take a moment to express our thanks to the staff and leadership of the town. We, as a firm and team, have conducted a great many of these reviews across the province, particularly over the last couple of years. And through that process, we've had experiences of a lot of different environments and municipal conditions that these reviews are conducted within, and certainly the town of Aurora has stood out as an exceptional one. These reviews are always fairly intensive. We ask a lot in terms of time and information to make sure that we can get things right, and the members of your team and staff here at the town have been nothing short of outstanding in providing that support, and as a result, I think this has been an extraordinarily smooth process. And that's a real testament to the leadership of the town. So I'd be remiss if I didn't thank the town staff and leadership for all the support, and our hats are off to you for making this a great process. I'll start off just by walking through on the next slide a brief recap of what our mandate was and what the objectives of this review were. Our objectives were to review all of the town services with respect to their value, the service levels and performance against those service levels, the overall mix of services from both a quantitative and a leading practices perspective, as well as in terms of resident perception. And from that, to work to identify improvement opportunities and alternative models of delivery that could either increase the efficiency and effectiveness of how services are delivered or enhance the way that staff across your departments can interact and collaborate to deliver services more effectively. We're also tasked to look at how growth and COVID-19 have or are likely to shape service delivery in the future and what that means for the town from a resourcing perspective. We were also asked to consider the implications for risk management going forward, thinking about disaster recovery and business continuity planning. On the next slide, to do that, we undertook a process that really breaks down into 4 key phases. We conducted what we call a current state assessment to look at strengths, gaps, and opportunities. That included an analysis of the available data and documents, as well as fairly extensive stakeholder interviews throughout the different levels of the organization. That included members of council, ELT, and CMT, and enabled us to document a corporate service inventory, which we really use as the basis for further analysis. That is trying to document all of the services that the town offers, both resident facing and internally. The second piece of analysis we undertook was a growth impact analysis, where we looked at a set of future growth scenarios, defined key drivers of service demand that might be impacted by those different growth scenarios, and assess what the impact on resourcing requirements in the future and the town's readiness to meet them look like. We engaged residents through a public engagement survey to glean their perspectives into how services are faring today and how they can be improved, and we received close to 100 responses from town residents to that survey. And then the final phase was really focused on taking all of those inputs as well as reviewing benchmarks and leading practices to identify what eventually amounted to 39 total separate high priority improvement opportunities that are the basis for the recommendations in this report. So as I noted, it was quite an involved process, but out of it, I think, as you'll find, a significant number of insights and findings that will help the town as it plans for the future. So on the next slide, before I turn it over to discuss each of those opportunities in turn, I want to take a second to highlight a few of the key takeaways for the town as a whole, and the themes that we found as we conducted this review. I think overall, it's fair to state that the town of Aurora is in a very strong position from both an organizational and a financial perspective. We reviewed the town against over 65 different financial indicators, and it performed at or above average on, I think, nearly all of them. Taxation levels in doing so are on par with municipalities we considered as comparators. From a service quality perspective, 19 out of the 25 town services we reviewed are performing at or above the standards that were defined. There are a number of services that still need to establish service levels or are in the process of doing so to better assess performance against those service levels. But in general, this is in comparison to a lot of municipalities around the province, quite stellar performance, both in terms of the ability to meet those service levels and the framework that you have in place to be able to evaluate them. I think speaking of the work that's ongoing to define those service levels that are still missing, the service modernization and continuous improvement efforts that the town is currently implementing or are underway are well ahead of what we would expect for comparable size municipalities. And in a lot of cases, a lot of the improvement opportunities that we would have normally identified based on our review just against leading practices and comparators were already identified and being worked on by the town. And I think that is a significant finding in terms of the town's ability to continue to improve over time and to achieve better use of resources as the external factors and dynamics it's facing change, which includes the next theme, which is growth. I think it's not going to be surprising to any of the members here that growth is expected to be significant, and that will, as we'll discuss during the growth impact analysis review, drive considerable changes in terms of demand for a number of the town's key services. So finding ways to maximize resource efficiency through the capability that's been demonstrated to continually improve the town's services and look at ways to get more for less is a significant benefit when considering that growth. Workforce development, also a key part of that. Obviously, things are changing fairly rapidly and will continue to change as the town grows and as the demands of residents change, and an HR strategy that considers that and how best to continue to invest in the workforce through training, learning and development, and considering different diversity and inclusion factors will help to continue to build on that. We found a strong appetite and a lot of thinking has already gone into how best to adapt the town to meet the needs of a rapidly changing population and environment. The final thing I'll note is that there is a very real and growing need for digital transformation. I don't think this is different for Aurora than for almost any municipality around the province of Ontario or Canada. It's something that I think COVID has put on the radar for every municipality, no matter the size or capacity. And even though there's a semblance of some return to normalcy, the expectations with respect to work arrangements, technological enablement of the day-to-day work that staff do, and what residents expect in terms of how they can engage with their town and receive services have all changed and will continue to change. And so as part of this review, thinking through how technology not only can enable the processes that exist today, but actually be utilized to transform the town services in the future is an important consideration, both a challenge and an opportunity. So I'm going to now hand it over to my colleague Srusti, who will start to go through some of the specific opportunities that we identified as part of the report.
Thank you, Jamin, and good evening, everyone. So this slide here provides a snapshot of current service level performance. We identified 25 major service areas in this review, and 19 out of 25 of them are performing at or above standard. In terms of the other 6, we did find that, we did find one of them has service standards that are currently under development, and the other 5 are mixed performance. So at standard and sometimes below standard, either due to capacity challenges or because of busy seasons at certain points or because of COVID. The other metric that we assessed was looking at which service areas have defined service levels. And so we saw that 23 out of 25 of them have partially to fully defined service levels. We also looked at key performance indicators, and we found that 17 out of 25 of the service areas have partially to fully defined KPIs. The next piece of assessment was around resident perspectives. We launched a resident survey that received close to 100 responses. And while this wasn't statistically significant, it did provide us with a good pulse check as to how the town feels about services. And overall, we did hear positive things and saw that 82% are satisfied or very satisfied with the town service level, and 58% are very familiar or quite familiar with the town service operations. We also looked at service delivery from a future state perspective, and so Aurora is growing, and we were tasked with looking at how this will impact service delivery. The report provides a very detailed methodology as to how we did that, but on the right is a summary of that analysis that considers how growth will impact things like our ability to finance the service, the organizational capabilities that will be required to deliver the service, and the overall risk that it constitutes. And I just want to focus on the left here, which speaks to the key takeaways that we had from the findings. The first is the need to continuously modernize and digitize operations, which my colleague Jamin did speak to. Next is Aurora's ability to service water and wastewater needs for the growth. The Water Reclamation Center that's scheduled for completion in 2028 was identified as a risk area in this regard, as the project has been delayed for quite some time due to government approval. The other piece is recreation and culture. Aurora's population is aging and diversifying. Development patterns are also changing, and as a result of that, citizen preferences will also be changing. So how will the town adapt its services to these changes? We recognize that in our review, a lot of the thinking on this is already underway, but will continue to be an important priority area. And finally are the delays in development charge collection, which will impact the town's ability to finance new developments, as we saw through the York Region Municipal Comprehensive Review, that this continues to be a regional issue. I'm going to now pass it on to my colleague Lauren, who will do a bit of a deep dive on some of the service delivery review opportunities.
All right, thank you so much, Shruti. So yeah, as Shruti just mentioned, the next piece is around improvement opportunities, which form the bulk of this report. We divided these into two groups of opportunities. First is service driven, and whether it's enterprise-wide or department-specific, these have been built out further with implementation considerations. Second, we have continuous improvement opportunities, and these really focus on documenting the findings on some of the good organizational hygiene or innovative opportunities that the town can explore further. We want to walk through each of the opportunities we developed, and in the final report, they are presented on a full page with background information and rationale and implementation considerations, and we will take you through each of those now. So starting with the enterprise-wide opportunities, the ones that really apply or touch across the organization, we found that many service areas currently do not have a complete set of defined service levels, could benefit from documenting a more detailed version of the service levels they have, or need to update their service levels to align with the town's growth. And so the first, we have two main components of this opportunity in particular. First being that there needs to be service levels established where gaps exist. And then second, an annual service level review process. So each year actually going through and checking in on whether these are the right standards. Do these standards make sense? Can we deliver them given our growth or other key factors, external factors? Our next three are really looking at opportunities that are connected to the customer experience plan. We heard several stories about barriers to collaboration internally because department service levels don't align, or because a department is not resourced to meet standards that are set by another department. And the town's customer experience plan alluded to developing interdepartmental service level agreements, but we are recommending prioritizing this exercise to help strengthen the town's interconnected foundation of internal operations. This is a foundational set of service levels that needs to be completed. The next one is focused on community services and Access Aurora, and a big question raised in the interviews and engagement we conducted was, you have two separate customer service functions. Do you bring customer service in community services and Access Aurora together? There were mixed views on this. Pursuing it would be a very big shift for the organization and would require change management and quite a bit of planning. And there wasn't the strongest business case for it coming through. Our suggestion on this one is, through the customer experience plan, there's journey mapping that's already planned to take place. And so if that finds that these town pathways should be aligned and centralized from a resident perspective, it would be worth exploring further. So there just needs to be a little bit more exploration done, which is already in the works. And then that question might be able to be answered a bit more clearly. Our last enterprise-wide opportunity, which is quite straightforward, proposes leveraging the customer experience plan to better define the town's value proposition to residents and improve access to services. And this really is focused on seizing every opportunity to demonstrate value to residents, and a customer experience plan sets the tone for this type of communication moving forward. And so this should just be baked into that plan. Now we're going to move on to we have one opportunity focused on the Office of the CAO, and this really looks at making the communications team more strategic and where possible, delegate its administrative and communications tasks like posting to social media to department level resources. And the rationale behind this is that it could then free up additional capacity for corporate communications to do more value added activities like media relations support to promote the town and its services better and you know, really be able to double down on those types of services. Right, so moving into our corporate services opportunities, we've got quite a few, 2 slides here. Our first one focuses on Access Aurora. During COVID, there has been an increased reliance on Access Aurora to complete additional tasks because they are on site at town hall. So things like printing, which was not really thought about before, is something that people need to happen. So mail, printing, anything that requires tangible tasks. And this impacts capacity, it increases workloads, and it can affect morale. So the team at Access Aurora has proactively developed an internal service agreement to govern its relations with other departments. So the real opportunity here is to use that agreement and ensure that there's recognition and capacity for the internal customer service initiatives that Access Aurora takes on, and to really make sure that those service level agreements are being enforced. So the next one we have here is off-site wedding services. Again, this one's quite straightforward. We saw that Aurora currently issues marriage licenses, but has an opportunity to deliver more comprehensive wedding services, particularly off-site, like your neighbors in Newmarket are doing. This would be fairly straightforward revenue generation for the town. Moving to legal services SLAs. A number of departments are very dependent on the great work of the legal services. And because of this demand, some opportunities were identified to improve workflow between legal services and the departments that it supports. And our initiative here really focuses on an expedited review of the SLAs that govern collaboration between legal services and the town's departments. Looking at an HR strategy, we think that it will be important for the town to develop a comprehensive HR strategic plan to best position Aurora for future capability and talent needs. This will be critical for informing a long-term talent management strategy. So what jobs of the future are going to look like for the town, how can we get ahead and train properly and recruit for the right roles. Okay, last couple on corporate services here. PMO, we observed that there has been a increased demand for the town's PMO function. It's growing. And as the organization matures and takes on more transformational projects, there is an opportunity to raise awareness of the value and services provided by PMO to better leverage its tools and expertise. Our initiative on this one recommends elevating the role of the PMO to focus more on enterprise-wide transformation projects. Bylaw was something that came up quite a lot. So this service has seen a 30% increase in call and complaint volumes since the onset of COVID-19. And this has resulted in a slight dip in service speed, but it has also highlighted the lack of visibility and awareness around call volumes and service levels. And so the opportunity here is really a decision point for council, and that is, given the clear increases in service level expectations and overall demand for bylaw services, does the town align resourcing to meet demand or decrease service levels and manage expectations of residents? So it's one of those zero-sum game situations where we just need to right size the resourcing or the service levels. Okay, our last one on this one is AMPS. This is focused on partnering with the region to transition to an administrative monetary penalty system. There are quite a few benefits to this, addressing backlogs, better utilizing judicial resources, improving access to the justice system, and there are some revenues associated here. Many municipalities have already implemented AMPS or in the process of it, so this is something that is worth keeping in mind for Aurora. Okay, I will pass it over back to Shrusti.
Thank you. So with respect to the finance department, just one opportunity here, but definitely high impact, and that is to review the contracted services to ensure value for money and opportunities to improve service level. So we saw that Aurora spends a high amount on contracted services compared to other peers. When we got more into the numbers, we saw that most of this is because of outsourcing fire and water services, which isn't a cause for concern, but there is just a general opportunity to strategically review contracts before renewing them and really ensure that the town is receiving best value for money. And then moving on to community services, so a few opportunities here. The first one is with respect to better empowering and training frontline staff to manage customer requests. Sometimes frontline staff are the only ones on site during a busy period, and so there is an opportunity to really empower them and train them to better manage urgent resident requests. The next opportunity is with respect to the special events team. Sometimes they are required to host more ad hoc events than originally budgeted, which can cause capacity challenges for staff and impact the ability to deliver quality service. So the opportunity here is to develop a council-approved policy for special events calendar planning, which we have seen as a best practice across municipalities. The next two are fairly similar. They're with respect to doing more of a mandate and resourcing review for facilities management, as well as culture services. So in terms of facilities management, we are seeing that many more facilities are under development. This is putting a strain on existing resources. Also within the division, there is a heavy reliance on part-time staff, which by default turn over more and can require more training investments. So doing a more in-depth review of this division would be valuable. Also with respect to culture, a few of the sub-services within the culture service area were identified as performing below standard, which is mainly attributed to a lack of capacity to develop, oversee, and implement the various master plans. So again, a more in-depth review opportunity here. Then moving on to operations. So this one's a fairly straightforward opportunity to digitize the road occupancy permit application, which is currently paper-based and email-based. This can sometimes make it difficult for contractors and homeowners to submit applications. And also there's currently not a bylaw in place to enforce these ROPs. And so that again is an opportunity area for consideration. And then finally, planning and development. So the first opportunity here is with respect to a customer relationship management system. So at Aurora right now, the use of a CRM system is limited to certain departments, but really expanding that functionality can allow for more effective tracking of communications and streamline the internal communications and workflow as well. This opportunity here is specific to the economic development and policy planning team, as they are the ones frequently in contact with town businesses, but there's definitely an opportunity to look more at an enterprise level as well. Then following that, the next opportunity is around a council-driven real estate portfolio strategy or policy. This is a best practice that we've seen in municipalities that really helps to provide the economic development team with the guidance and the direction to bring the right proposals forward to council. So again, setting more strategic direction in that area. And then finally, the last service-driven opportunity is with respect to delivering new business and community development services. And this would be in collaboration with the Community Services Department. These two divisions propose some pretty interesting ideas to support town businesses, local businesses, by providing workforce training or helping non-for-profits establish governance and have the basic tools for management. These services are worthy of exploring further and through a business case to see if the town would like to pursue them beyond the idea. So that provides a very high level overview of the service-driven opportunities that we have identified in our review. I'll just pass it to Jamin here to kind of speak to the financial considerations for these.
Thanks, Sushi. The following slides summarize some of the calculations related to the cost benefit analysis we did for each of the initiatives that were just discussed. I will spare, in the interest of time, you with going through line by line through each of them, which are available in the full report. And certainly we're happy to answer any questions regarding any of the specific initiatives. But I do want to discuss in a general sense how we approached assessing potential costs and benefits and what the overall picture for the town looks like. Because it is a quite a positive picture, but as with most of these types of service delivery reviews, it's also a complex one to analyze. A few things that are important to note before we discuss the facts and figures. When we talk about savings, we're talking about savings from a variety of sources. That includes direct cost savings. So in other words, direct reductions to bottom line expenditures, but also productivity savings, which equate to the amount of time saved by staff at various levels generally, and other cost avoidance factors, and are calculated primarily by converting that time into a dollar figure based on salary benefit information. And the majority of the savings identified in this report, as you might expect from the nature of the initiatives, fall under the latter category of productivity savings. So they're achieved through driving efficiencies and enhancing capabilities across the people and talent of the organization, digitizing workflows in order to speed up processes and reduce required effort, standardizing processes and KPIs to reduce guesswork, duplication, and right-size effort. And we also include procurement savings in that, related to cost avoidance through better market pricing and contractor and vendor management to drive value for money. So there are a lot of different types of calculations that go into coming up to the final figures, and there's additional detail under each of the detailed initiative profiles. Ultimately, it's also important to note that the savings we'll discuss will be realized over time, and as initiatives are both implemented and the benefits are realized at maturity. So it will take time and investment to achieve the benefits that we're going to discuss, and the speed at which that happens is really ultimately up to the town to decide. We have recommendations around implementation, but it will be based on the capacity, ambition, and interest of the town to move forward with the various recommendations. So on the next slide, just to provide a high-level overview of what those calculations look like. In sum total, across all of the initiatives, if implemented, we calculated a total estimated initial sum of one-time investments on the order of just over $250,000, and related ongoing costs of just over $850,000 in increased annual expenses. But the benefit of the total investments and increased costs equate to roughly $1.8 million in annual expected savings. That's inclusive of all of those different sources and drivers that I talked about, for a net benefit of just under $1 million annually in terms of potential savings for the town. So again, this is across the entire portfolio of recommendations that were just discussed if implemented. The figures will differ based on what the town chooses to move forward with and when. We calculated these benefits based on benchmarks, internal analysis, and secondary research, and based on the nature of the initiatives and the related practices associated with them. But I think it's important to note that our philosophy when calculating these types of cost benefits related to service delivery reviews is to take the most conservative approach possible. So we look at the high end of what we expect potential investments to look like and the low end of what we might expect in terms of savings. The goal is to provide the largest margin of positive error we can. So to put it another way, our goal is to estimate the floor of the potential benefits rather than to be overly optimistic. I think it's very likely that in implementation, the benefits could be substantially higher. The other thing that I'll note is that financial or productivity benefits aren't the sole determinant or objective behind making recommendations. So you'll note that not all of the financial profiles look on their own positive. There are other qualitative benefits, risk considerations, and other factors that Lauren and Cersei discussed that go into determining what to move forward with, and all of those are substantial in their own right. So as I said, I'll avoid going through this table now in the interest of time, but we have provided the initial investment estimates, annual operating expense estimates, as well as the total annual savings and net benefits we expect for each of them, and are provided in greater detail in the full report. So I will turn it over to Lauren just to wrap us up.
And I will wrap us up quickly. So as I mentioned earlier, we have a set of continuous improvement opportunities, and these are not directly related to a service, but are general good organizational hygiene practices that we really didn't want to see lost. So we want to capture them here. And then on the right side, we have some innovative practices, things like public Wi-Fi, digital services and payments and things like that. And just some of those value added activities that Aurora can either start looking at or continue to invest in to continue on its course as an already fairly innovative municipality. Looking at the implementation timelines, we spread these opportunities across 3 waves, each wave spanning 1 to 2 years. We wanted to balance quick wins with important foundational work that should start happening early on. And the timing of these have been validated with ELT, but will of course need greater detail as the different teams set to operationalize them. Moving on to next steps, we propose that council and ELT align on how to prioritize these recommendations and further build out these projects as they align with internal protocols. Each opportunity analysis includes detailed implementation considerations. So those should really help guide the initial steps of implementing each of these. But yeah, we are really just hoping to hand off this report with as much support as needed and see as many of these implemented in the town.
Sorry. Thank you very much. That was an incredible, very detailed presentation this evening. I want to thank you all very much for that. We will need a mover and a seconder to put the item on the floor for discussion. May I have Mayor Maracas, Councilor Thompson? Are there any comments or questions for the? Do I see it somewhere? Oh, there you go. Councilor Gilliland.
Thank you. Thanks so much for this report. I have to say it's probably one of the most comprehensive reports in such great detail. I really enjoyed going through it. And it really sets a tone on a lot of things that we can prioritize. And I really like the opportunity section as well. So I really do appreciate that. It looks like we're on the right track. You mentioned a lot of things that I think we're already doing, which is fantastic with the diversity inclusion. So that would fall under the HR strategy development that we're working on in our cultural master plan. We're also working on our procurement. So this is really exciting to know that we've been focusing and shifting in some of those areas. But it's also great that you're setting us to set our eyes on other things that maybe, we should prioritize moving forward. I guess one of the things that kind of stuck out for me on your top list of things to be looking into was the fiscal strategy moving forward with the DC collection and the impact on future debt requirements. I didn't see that in your list or what bucket that fell in at the very end where you had that timeline. And I'm just wondering where that would fit in as far as, does it fit in the top 21? Because it is in this report in the top 6. But if you could just maybe kind of clarify what bucket that would fall in the timeline report with the suggestions.
Ms. Wyman?
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. Thank you so much for that question. Yes, so the DC charges is something that came up a few times, and I think that where we landed was that the current approach is not one that is causing serious problems at the moment. It's just something that needs to be watched as we see the town grow. It's already something that is underway as a part of the fiscal strategy. And so we didn't want to call it out separately as a separate standalone initiative because we didn't want to duplicate any of the work that's already being done. So it's being monitored and it's being addressed currently.
Councilor Gilland.
Great, thank you. I appreciate that. And I'm sure I can defer to staff later on a little bit more detail with that. I was very excited about the connectivity with pedestrians and cyclists. I saw that was some of the top stuff as well. As far as the process that you have, the standardized process, and I really liked you had made some comments on the special events calendar, how it was best practice. And I think I know what it means to do that, but could you just kind of explain what that best practice looks like and what we're not doing now, what we can do better?
Ms. Wyman, if you can answer. Thank you.
Yes, for sure. Through you, Madam Chair. I'm going to rely on my colleague Shrusti here, who was sort of the expert in that area.
Sure, of course.
Thank you.
Thank you. And through you, Madam Chair. So with respect to the special events policy, it is our understanding that at the beginning of the fiscal year, a calendar is set for the special events, but creating a policy around sort of, when an event comes up on an ad hoc basis, and if there is a need to, schedule an event that wasn't already planned at the beginning of the year, what is our guiding criteria for how we'll make those decisions? So designing a policy around that decision-making process is helpful. So for example, does it align with our strategy, or if we are prioritizing, diversity and inclusion programming as part of our culture plan, then, that would be an example of another criteria. So it really is just to guide decision-making around additional ad hoc events that are required.
Thank you. Ms. Pendet, Councilor Gilland.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And do you happen to, obviously this is something you identified. Do you have any examples of other municipalities that you would, capture or have an example of that we could look to see what other people are doing? Because, especially during COVID times, we're always moving and adjusting and doing things really quickly in a drop of a hat. So I'd be interested in knowing who's doing it successfully with this in place.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I know of one, and I know that Tracy probably has others. Milton actually just released a really excellent cultural plan, and it would be worth taking a look at as an example.
Great, thank you so much.
Great, thank you. Councilor Thompson.
Actually, I believe Councilor Gardner had her hand.
Yep, I saw.
Go ahead, it's fine. Go ahead, Mr. Councilor Thompson.
I saw Councilor Gartner's as well, but I thought I saw you first.
Thanks, Councilor Gardner. Certainly to the consultants, thank you for a very comprehensive report and providing further direction and recommendations towards our striving for continuous improvement. It certainly was the goal in the outset to look at what we're doing and take a look around to other organizations to see where we can learn from and improve just in terms of the next steps. So the report before us talks about the need now to prioritize and identify those recommendations. And so going to the slides and your implementation timeline, you broke things down into waves. So can I assume then, from your perspective, the items identified in wave 1 would be the priority items to start with?
Ms. Pandaya, would that be you?
Sure. So through you, Madam Chair, I can begin, and then maybe if Lauren, you want to chime in as well. So with respect to prioritization, we, like Lauren mentioned, we looked at quick wins versus foundational work that needs to begin early on. So, short answer, yes, that is, the waves do speak to the way we suggest prioritizing the initiatives. However, there will also be internal considerations like the upcoming budgeting process and other discussions internally that may require staff to reconsider the prioritization. And so we have provided guidance, but we do see it as an ongoing internal dialogue to best determine the prioritization.
Thank you. Councilor Thompson.
Great. And as a follow-up through you, Madam Chair, to Mr. Nadarozny, when could we as council expect that follow-up report to come to us that speaks more in detail about the prioritization, any cost implications, and next steps?
Mr. Nadarozny.
Through you, Madam Chair, we would look to bring something back to council with
the staff's perspective on the next steps early in the new year. Thank you. And just a general comment, I was fortunate enough to be on council when we went through this process many years ago. So certainly coming into it, I had a certain mindset and hope of what to get out of the process. And based on my review of the document, I'm quite pleased. I think it does provide a good foundation upon which to build with and give some direction for the next few years to continue to drive efficiencies and effectiveness and be even more impactful for our residents. And so look forward to the next steps. And thank you again for all your work, both to the consultants, to ELT, and to all who contributed.
Thank you, Councilor Thompson. Councilor Gartner.
Thank you. I'm looking at slide summary of potential financial benefits and investments. So it's slide 2 of 3. I just need to make sure I'm clear on this. So the total initial investment is $252,000. And each year we're going to have to spend an extra $852,400 on operating expenses. That's so each year, but then the total savings. Thank you. Well, it's a terrific report. Thank you. It's comprehensive. It's just as Councilor Gillan said, I think one of the best reports we've received. So thank you to all of you. And there are a lot of you involved in this.
And thank you, Councilor Gartner. Mayor Maracus.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the report. I think that when we wanted to go through this exercise, we wanted to identify what we could do as a municipality, to provide, we always talk about it, to provide the best possible service at the best possible price for our residents. My takeaways right away off the top are the fact that when I go through this report, it speaks to the fact that the town is in a strong financial position. The majority of the town services are being performed at or above standard. And the town is actively investing in continuous improvement and has a strong culture with dedicated staff committed to ensuring service delivery excellence to its citizens. I think that speaks to what we've been doing around this table for a while. That doesn't say that doesn't need to be more done. Obviously, that's the whole part of this exercise is to find opportunities which have been identified. And so I'm very happy with what's in front of us. I think it's a great report, as everyone has said. And I think it identifies that we are on the right track. We've been on the right track and there's more to do. And we will continue to do that and continue to provide the best possible service for our residents at the best price. So thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Mayor Maracus. Are there any more comments or questions? Oh, Councilor Gartner. I'm sorry, Councilor Gartner.
Thank you. Just a question about the cultural sub-services. I might have missed it in the report. Could you tell me what that is, the cultural sub-services?
Ms. Wyman or Mr. Chin? Yeah, there you go. Thanks.
I'll throw that to my colleague, Srusti. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Right. Ms. Bandea or?
Thank you.
There you are. Thanks. Sorry.
Through you, Madam Chair. So the sub-services, as we identified them with staff, were performing below standard were cultural policies and strategies, support economic development and downtown revitalization, and public art.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Partner.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Is that in the report somewhere?
Yes, on
Do you
page,
know where?
page 54.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any other comments, Councilor Gartner?
No, thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? I just wanted to quickly echo the comments around the table. Exceptional report. Thank you to everyone who participated. ELT, our consultants, council. I feel very much that this truly is, there were no big surprises, but it was just nice to see that we have been providing services. And our town speaks very highly. Our residents often talk about exactly what's in this report, how much they enjoy. And you heard that, how much they enjoy the events. And I really got a kick out of Machel's Alley. That's brand new. That just happened, and people to already acknowledge and notice that. So things of that nature means we really are, hope, heading on the right track. I'm looking forward to the future on this. And I just wanted to say, it almost felt like for me, like tying up some loose ends to make it, a full-blown program end to end, and those KPIs really stand out easily and consistently throughout all our parts of organization. Thank you very much. May I have a mover to move? I'm sorry, we already did. May I if there's no formal further questions, I'll call the vote. All in favor? Opposed? That carries. Thank you very much. Thank you for joining us this evening. Take care. Bye-bye. Right. Move on to, apologies, guys. 8.2. And here we've got Green Development Standards update. First, we will have a presentation by Lisa Prime, the team lead and project manager of Prime Strategy and Planning, Inc. Welcome. Please state your name and reminded that you have 10 minutes for your presentation this evening. Oh, you're on mute, Mrs. Prime. Sorry, Ms. Prime. There you
Apologies.
go. That's okay.
Can never get all the buttons straight, no matter how often you do this. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm happy to be here to present. I'm just going to share my screen with you. Can you see the presentation?
Yes.
Okay, it's great. Got the right screen on. 1 second here. So I've got quite a few slides here, but what I'm going to do is try to be fairly quick. I think you have seen some of the detail, and of course, there's a lot of detail from a staff understanding perspective, but we'll go through it as efficiently as I can so you can understand the context. From a team perspective, we've been happy to be working with Matthew as the project manager and steering committee for this project. Nadia Dohaniak, project head of research at Prime Strategy, who did the heavy lifting on this project particularly, is also here with us tonight. And Ryan Zizzo provided some particular expertise and embodied carbon related input to what we've done with the standard. So just quickly, to show you, we're going to talk about quickly what a GDS is, why the town is implementing it, give you a bit of a project update on the process for getting to the draft GDS, and then a little bit follow up on implementation and training staff and sort of what's happening next. So what is a GDS, Green Development Standards? We refer here to the Clean Air Partnership definition. It's really a set of voluntary and or mandatory measures for municipalities to implement for sustainable development. This is something that is integrated with the planning approvals process and is really a policy tool to support official plan goals for sustainability. Oh dear, sorry. Sensitive mouse. It's been working a lot today. Why implement the GDS? I think the town has quite a bit of commitment around emissions reduction, climate resiliency, and sustainability. Have significant growth and expectations that will happen within the town that you want to manage. And the GDS really helps address several municipal policy objectives specifically referred to in the official plan in section 5.2. And of course, this really brings the town of Aurora in line with many other municipalities who are already implementing green development standards. There are several co-benefits, and we've certainly taken a lens to the GDS for Aurora to ensure that we are looking at economic, environmental, and social benefits across what sorts of measures we selected. And so you can see here sort of a summary list of just the various objectives that we focus on and that you can achieve co-benefit out of looking at this community-wide. So we're getting towards the end of the process here in phase 3. We started with a discussion paper and a fair bit of research guiding what went into the draft standard. We've done consultation with the development industry as well as other stakeholders that the town of Aurora sort of works with, conservation authority, school boards, etc. And we now have the draft standard. We've done some sort of pre-training or sort of testing it out a bit on projects with staff, and we'll continue to refine and sort of the details to make sure implementation can effectively happen into the new year. Just quickly on the discussion paper, this was quite a comprehensive review of existing standards and best practices, of innovation and sort of what's happening out there in the context of sustainability and climate change, third-party rating systems such as LEED, Passive House, WELL. We particularly looked at incentive options, existing programs that exist and where the town might leverage their community improvement plan, for example. So that set out the context for moving forward, and that was shared with the steering committee and as we move through iterations of what would be in the standard. Through consultation, there's a summary here that just shows you some of the things we heard. There was definitely an interest in aligning with other sort of programs and policies, which makes complete sense. The intent of the Green Development Standard is not to add a layer of complexity or sort of extra hoops to get through, but to really streamline and focus on what matters and ensure that it's not repeating, but well aligned with what other requirements are. So you see that in York Region, the Conservation Authority. We've looked at the impact of infrastructure, we've looked at carbon sequestration, and we've looked at improving and increasing our ability to address permeable surfaces for mid and high rise. Incentives, as I said, I'll talk about that a little bit more as we get into the different tiers of voluntary options. We've included some embodied carbon and sort of really future thinking about this, areas that I think will grow very much over time. We've approached this with a bit of a pilot expectation in the way we phased it, but certainly industry had wanted some piloting understanding of it, and so hence we've done some internally and we phased our implementation, and we decided to shift around some of the initial requirements we had between the tiers in getting to this draft. So to quickly walk you through, I'm going to get a high level, try to walk you through the 5 themes. There are 5 themes that make up the GDS: energy, water, ecology, complete communities, waste, and materials. Just for context, the way this is structured, we've split it into 2 phases for implementation. Phase 1 has 2 tiers in it. These are all essentially mandatory requirements. So we will be implementing this first phase with a set of requirements that must be done. The difference between tier 1 and 2 is tier 2 has some flexibility or options that you can choose from, whereas tier 1 is a set that you must do. When you look at phase 2, the implementation will come in the future. It's a voluntary set of measures. It also has increasing performance throughout all 4 tiers and increasing from 3 to 4. And in doing that, it has incentives that will be tied to those tiers. So I'm going to first walk you through phase 1 quickly on energy. Essentially, we have an energy efficiency and an expectations for GHG reductions and sort of starting our path towards net zero through the energy theme. And this particular theme has performance metrics that are increasing throughout all 4 tiers. So there's some that fall in the mandatory tier phase 1 and some that also fall in phase 2. Focus of the requirements in the tier 1 mandatory are about enabling and getting us to an infrastructure scenario for electric vehicles, ensuring parking spaces are accessible and available for future EV. They also focus on solar or PV accommodation and energy modeling for buildings and some feasibility for future district energy where that applies. The tier 2, so this is where you're choosing in this case, 2 out of 6. We've put 6 options here. Some of them apply to low rise, some of them mid rise, but it does give a good selection between the different sort of forms of development to increase the actual implementation of EV, to actually implement solar technologies, to look at higher district energy implementation, to look at above code options for your energy efficiency, and to look at carbon reductions, essentially renewables as a percentage of your energy. In the water category, again, we have 3 tiers that address water. So phase 1, tier 1 and 2, and then there's some voluntary as well in 3. So first show you tiers 1 and 2. Various improvements here that align with conservation authority, implementation of low impact development, reduction of hard surfaces, low flow requirements, building best management practices to reduce runoff further, in the selection of options in tier 2. So you just start to sort of increase the performance. So a further reduction on hard surfaces, further reduction on reuse of water, and salt, reduction of salt use. In ecology, we're looking at options that do cross both phases. So there are some voluntary options in tier 3 and 4 to sort of protect and restore the ecological function. In this set of requirements, we do focus on bird-friendly design and requiring glass that is fretted or includes architectural expectations to limit bird strikes. We focus on plantings and non-invasive species, ensuring we've got dark sky compliant lighting, that we've created tree planting that meets increased soil volumes to ensure we have healthy and sort of long-term growing trees. And we've cross-listed green roof options in this scenario as well as an ecological option. For tier 2, we're looking at 2 out of 5 criteria that you would achieve. In this case, they're all related to all development, and they just start to, again, increase the expectations of performance around the percentages of plantings, the trees that are provided, operation and maintenance to ensure we've got salt addressed in how we use that, and adding embodied carbon and carbon sequestration calculations into what's put into landscape plans. Complete communities is the category that has really been included to particularly bring together the various expectations of what's already required in some cases for applications in the development process, but into a sustainability lens. So it harmonizes many things in that way. It's about how well the site is connected and planned, from active transportation close to parks and transit, various other requirements. It is primarily a phase 1 mandatory sort of review process, but there are some voluntary options as well that show up. I know I'm going to have to hurry here. Transportation demand management planning comes into effect through this, taking a strong sense of access to parks and open spaces, what's around you, how you've coordinated with accessibility measures, how you've coordinated with cultural heritage impact assessments. And then we have options as well in the mandatory choice here, carpooling, increased bicycle requirements, and access to maintenance for bikes, amenity space, those sorts of things to really ensure we've got public walkways that direct people to pedestrian areas or parks and other areas. There's options for transit passes that can be provided. You may get a point here if you're close to transit, which of course won't apply throughout the entire town, but in key areas. Urban agriculture has been included. It's really quite a comprehensive list we've dealt with. Waste and materials is the last category, and this is really where we're trying to ensure that from a construction perspective, we reduce waste and make sure that we're diverting as much as we can, that we address a bit of embodied carbon in materials, and that we also look at waste diversion, especially in multi-unit buildings where design is sometimes less accommodating. So we ask for waste stream management for construction. We ask for ensuring that kitchens are meeting the ability and the simple ways that we can achieve diversion through access in drawers and cupboards. We look at material use and increasing sort of low carbon materials, and then building design that ensures that we've got space for waste collection and waste separation, and that we continue to look at embodied carbon in structure components and envelopes of the building. Then there's a couple other choices here as well that you can make with respect to reduced specifications for low carbon materials, and that you're ensuring you've collected waste separated. Phase 2, just quickly, has 2 tiers, as I said. These are voluntary. This is where we'll be looking for setting some incentives. And here we in the same themes, just start to increase the performance. So here we're looking at designing buildings with those core actual structural elements that are taking us on a path to net zero, focusing on air tightness, glazing, HRV, heat pumps, and then in addition, actual third-party certification for net zero buildings and implementation of district energy. Then we've got some other voluntary options for water around best practices and just further improving how well we reduce permeability and improve water reuse. Ecology, similar, takes it up in performance expectations, and complete communities as well is about implementing TDM, ensuring that what was proposed is implemented, ensuring that we've got options for community hubs, refuge, in refuge from resiliency, and waste and materials, again, just increasing the expectations on how we divert, how we use embodied carbon materials and look for options for low carbon. So that's a pretty fast run through, but essentially we're sort of completing with staff the final version. Phase 1 will be ready to be implemented. Phase 2 will require a little bit further work around incentives, and then the town can track metrics and report back on the implementation. We'll continue to train with staff and ensure that we've left them with sort of a clear handbook on how applications will be reviewed, and to ensure that an industry comes in, understands what's expected in any additional submissions of reports or anything like that. So that will continue to happen. And then yeah, that's the project ready to be implemented. So I think that's the end of really what I have to say, and I'm happy to take any questions, or I'm sure Matthew would as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Bryan. Much appreciate that presentation. We need a mover and a seconder to put the item on the floor for discussion. May I have a mover? Councillor Kim? Councillor Thompson? Any comments or questions for the doc? Councillor Gilliland?
Is this on? Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much for this report. The sustainability aspect, reducing emissions and increasing the climate resiliency, we're definitely on the right track. I'm excited to know that our municipality is going in this direction. I also had the luxury of being able to partake in one of your stakeholder meetings and give some feedback as well. And I could tell that you guys were on the right track. I love the tier 1 mandatory sections you've got going on there. Definitely, it's clear. It has a lot of great incentives there and initiatives that I think go in line with our vision towards a green standard. As far as the energy consumption, I did have a question as to the types of energy. And one of the things you had talked about was the infrastructure for electric vehicles. And it is something that we are moving forward with. We have some installed in various locations already. But I just wanted to really touch on hydrogen and what that looks like in the future as well. And if it's would be in our best interest as to at least have some sort of rough-in for some sort of infrastructure, since we are doing a lot of new development right now. And at some point will be built out and it'll be a lot more expensive to incorporate this. And I'm just wondering if there is a reason why we didn't touch on that.
Is Brian, if you can answer?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair, through you. Good question. We haven't addressed hydrogen. I have certainly some experts on this topic that I know well, and it's not something I think you've seen yet in green development standards. I'm not sure what that would look like, but you know what? We'll happily go back and sort of give it some thought and see how that might fit in. I think essentially it would fit in with sort of the low carbon, the carbon component we have in energy. You could choose to achieve your 10%, I think it is. I don't have it open now in front of me, for carbon reduction using any form of whether it's solar or anything. So it certainly shows up there. And it could show up, I guess, technically from a district system perspective. But yeah, I don't know what else we would do other than have it just be any form that has an option through the standard as we've set it out. But happily go back and look, talk to some experts that I do know about what that could look like. Thank you.
Thank you. I would really appreciate that. I'm kind of curious about it from some meetings that I've been to around this topic, just doing my own research. I understand it's the how you actually receiving the hydrogen is really the challenge, and the recommendation is to cluster the sources of energy together to make it easier to receive. And that's going to be the big challenge of how we convert. And so if we have some opportunities now, especially while we're doing some redevelopment in our downtown core, and we do have some more mid-rise and high-rise, and we are putting these EV chargers, and maybe there is some opportunity there in the voluntary section. And what does that look like if it was in the voluntary section? And what is an incentive just around that? I don't know what that would look like, but at least it opens up the conversation as to the opportunity.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Just a quick question of clarity on one of the ecology mandatory sections. On 1.7, you had said 30% available roof space, and you said green roof, solar, or cool roof. And could you just clarify if you meant by green roof, you meant actually like planting on top of the roof, or is this, a broad statement which could mean solar or some sort of energy saving, I don't know, HVAC system? What does that mean when you say green roof? Is it specifically planting materials?
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. Yes, it's listed to, yes, it's a green roof is a technical expectation, and there will be a technical sort of guidance on how you include plantings as part of a properly designed roof structure. We include cool roofs as an alternative, or solar, all of which can to some extent be combined on different aspects or areas of a roof, but essentially reducing urban heat island through all of the options. The green roof perhaps providing you more of a stormwater related function in reserving water as well. So there's a bit of multifunction that happens with the different roof options, perhaps more in the green roof than in a cool roof.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. So a couple more, is that okay?
Sure.
I know that we talked about this before, the DC rebates and fast tracking, which, I think is a great solution to incentivize, but have we looked any further as to what that might look like within our means?
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. No, not yet. What will happen is phase 2 is going to be sort of delayed in implementation. We will set out sort of some expectations in principle on perhaps which incentives should align with which requirements. But there's some sort of further analysis I think the town would have to do to figure out sort of what those calculated opportunities would be financially for returning DCs, for example. Certainly fast tracking process is a process that can be implemented, and using the CIP is an option as well. And I believe those are things that are being updated now with the new official plan. And so there will be some analysis that would coordinate with actually implementing those.
Great, thanks. I look forward, through you, Madam Chair, I look forward to researching that further and seeing what we can do, because we certainly want to incentivize these builders and developers to do so. Just one last question, and I think I've brought this up before. There was a section on the voluntary section, and there were just some questions about, if somebody decided they wanted to do that during the tier 2 mandatory, but yet they wanted to negotiate and say, well, you know what, I'll do 2 of these voluntary things with 1 of these mandatory. Is that flexibility something that's built into that if it suits the kind of development? Because some of the items might not be suitable to whatever that type of development is, but the voluntary ones would be. So I didn't know if there was some fluid kind of flexibility within that.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. The intent, the way that it's structured is that the requirements through the different tiers sort of get harder, so to speak. They're intended to be relatively achievable in tier 1 and tier 2 with that flexibility. So you can exactly choose, partly because your project may be slightly different. So we acknowledge it may not be perfect, but I think it's a pretty good set of things that are achievable. I would suggest, and certainly it's up to the town, but absolutely, if someone walks in the door looking to negotiate on something they want to do in the voluntary sections, I would certainly encourage the town to sit down and look at what that could look like and how you might get there. Certainly partnerships in part are a big way that we can achieve some significant real progress in some of these, whether it's district energy systems or other innovative ideas. So I'll leave that one with staff, but I certainly would think that would make sense.
Great, thanks so much.
Thank you, Councillor Cartner.
Thank you. Another excellent report. Appreciate it. On page 3 of the report, at the very bottom, it says the project team is currently assessing potential external incentives to support implementation, which would not have a direct fiscal impact on the town. Could you perhaps expand that?
Through you, Madam Chair. Yes, so one of those is how you fast track applications or give priority to applications through your internal process. So you could argue there's an effort required there that does have a money attached to it, but that would be one of the primary ways. There are also other incentives and access to funds through other programs that exist, third-party programs, Toronto Atmospheric Fund, Enbridge programs for energy efficiency and integrated design process, savings by design program, and probably something else that's not coming to my head. But so those programs, they do evolve and revolve a little bit. NRCan has some programming funding for EV infrastructure, for example, which you may have yourself at the town use. So I think you want to encourage and promote those programs in particular when they exist.
Thank you. The green roof has been around for a long time. I think perhaps there's not such a great uptake, although it has many advantages, because I believe you have to build the structure stronger, which would make it more expensive. But and I don't think we we see that. But with the cool roof, are you talking about a white roof?
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. Yes, yes, a cool roof is a white roof. Green roof structurally have, just to let you know, have different formats. You can build an extensive roof or an intensive roof. An intensive roof certainly does require a stronger structure for load capacity. May or may not be an issue relative to, depending on what you're trying to design. But, you know, for example, on an industrial building, cool roof is probably the thing that might make the most sense and that you most often would see because of the structural capacity. But it does vary between extensive or intensive. Intensive would be, for example, something if you're looking to do urban agriculture or do more significant plantings than just a sedum. It also would take a greater volume of water in a resiliency stormwater scenario.
Right. Although it's a good idea. Thank you. So a follow-up on that, I mean, a white roof, it just would be so easy to do. It wouldn't cost any more than a regular roof, but I don't see many examples of, nothing here. I don't see many examples of that even in Toronto. Am I wrong?
Through you, Madam Chair. I don't have any stats on that. I would suggest that you probably just can't see them for one, because they're up high. And that you generally are seeing, and particularly in Toronto with their green development standard, I think you see more of them. I would suggest it probably isn't much more cost, but a builder would probably suggest there is some added cost, but certainly less than a green roof. So
to me, that's just such a simple solution to a big problem. In going to 2.4, the theme is energy. It says that, you know, we could have a 15% better than the Ontario Building Code standard. I've asked this question many times at the table, and the answer always is, well, if it's not in the building code, we can't enforce it. Could you comment on that?
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. Good question. So this is why we chose in tier 2 to do sort of options. So 2 out of 7, 2 out of 3 out of 6, that sort of scenario. So it meant that, you know, you have a policy mandate that suggests that, you know, you can ask for green development standards, you can ask for climate positive related development. And this gives the flexibility. So we're not mandating that you have to do above code, but we are suggesting there are several ways that you can do higher performance in energy, and that could be one of them. And it provides a bit of flexibility in the sense that for some, 10% or 15% above code is not really a big challenge, but for others, they may consider it is. It partly relates to the way that a developer chooses to do his projects, right? And some are building more efficiently already than others. So this sort of provides that as an option. So we can ask for it in the scenario that we're asking you to pick. We're not telling you you must do that one.
Thank you. Under 2.4 water, you know, how feasible is this? How expensive is this?
Through you, Madam Chair, let me just get to.
It's rainwater harvesting and recirculation and reuse for outdoor irrigation and outdoor water use. And then the other thing is, you know, I think they call it brown water, recirculating brown water for things like toilet flushing, perhaps.
Yeah, gray water. So it's a
gray water
scenario. Right. You know, here we're referring to it for outdoor water, outdoor irrigation or outdoor water use. So it's an irrigation really yes. Cost in particular. You know, this depends on your project as far as how big your project is and what that might cost. I would suggest it's not untypical that that developments are using irrigation from buildings and sites into trees on street trees, for example. So it sort of would depend on your project. It does add some cost, as some of these things do. But again, this is why that one is in the options you choose from. So you may not choose to do it. There may be a reason why it's a good choice for your project, but it may not be.
Thank you. And I mean, I don't know if water is going to be an issue in the province of Ontario, but it is going to be an issue. So perhaps that gray water will be coming down at some point.
Through you, Madam Chair, as they say, or one of my one of my climate leaders from the Netherlands would say, you have no resiliency if you have no water. So we need to work well to protect our water resources across all regions.
Thank you. And I can't refer to the section because I didn't write it down, but it's about permeable pavement. I don't know, is Mr. Downey is Mr. Downey present?
Mr. Downey, are you there? I'm sure you're there.
It's okay if he isn't, but Mr. Downey had a terrific idea for the parking lot at Shepherd's Bush with permeable pavement. And, you know, it sounded great. At the end of the day, it didn't hold up very well. So when we're talking about using permeable pavement, and in some cases, you know, the choice is a huge amount of permeable pavement, I think we really need to be careful about that. And maybe instead of that, use side catchments off of parking lots. But it's great in theory. I just don't know if the, I just don't know what the, help me out here.
Feasibility?
How they, I mean, it's not, if they get clogged and we have to replace them, it's, you know, how viable it is. And so that's something I think we need to do more work on.
Through you, Madam Chair, I just might comment, that installation is several years old now.
Yeah.
I am aware of the technology that was used. And I'd suggest that we've got an emerging set of different technologies now, for one. But the rest of your point is absolutely correct. And I think it's something you want to report on and monitor and make sure you're looking at options and new options.
Thank you. I'm going to stay with ecology because, or maybe I won't because that's farther along. Actually, my other questions are on the CC sections. Perhaps I'll hold that. But with waste, maybe I can do waste now. Waste is 2.4. Actually, I see this, the CC sections follow this. I'm wrong. Sorry, not with ecology. I noticed that in some of the tier 2s under waste 2.4, the when you have to pick 2 out of 6 or 3 out of 9, some of them are just very easy. To my mind, they're too easy. For example, under waste 2.4 is provide a dedicated collection area or room for household hazardous waste and or electronic waste. You know, that to me is too easy to choose as an option because there are places where you can go to recycle hazardous waste and electronic waste. And maybe we would recycle more if it was on site. But to me, that's too easy for the developer to do. I would like that to disappear from this chart if possible. I think that's all for now, Madam Chair, but I do want to say that Section 5 in the official plan is 9 pages long. It's comprehensive. It's been in place since at least 2012. So, you know, 9 years later, we're getting to it. So my comment is I certainly hope that in this term of council, we can make a lot of inroads into this.
Absolutely, Councilor Gardner.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Mayor Maracus.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And, you know, when we talk about official plans, we talk about the flexibility of them. And, you know, as was mentioned, there are sections within our official plan that speak to a lot of these, but they don't go into detail. And I think that that's what this does. This provides a detail and it sets the standards for what we want to see as a municipality within our municipality and how we grow and have that appropriate growth. We talk about it all the time. And I think that that's very important. So I'm happy with what I see in front of us, you know, today. And I think that even some of the stuff, and I'll touch on a few items that kind of jumped out at me, that I think that we've been a little bit hesitant in moving forward with in previous times, drought tolerant plantings. You know, some previous councillors had the foresight to look at possibly implementing this in the town long time ago, and we never followed through with that. And so I'm glad to see that we're looking at moving forward in those directions. The other thing that I see that jumps out at me that we tend to have a hesitancy when we see applications comes when it talks about heat pumps. And it talks about different ways of actually providing that development. And we tend to get a little hesitant. So I like to see that being in there as well, that it will allow us to move forward in you know, I think in a very positive direction. But as I mentioned, I think that the detail part of this and providing that detail and providing that clear vision for how we want to move forward as a municipality in any development that comes forward, I think is a good thing. And it's something that we always strive for in this municipality. I did have one thing though another thing that jumps out, but it not so much in a positive light. Ms. Prime, we actually spoke on the phone for a bit today, and it was a great conversation. But one thing that did jump out when I was going through the presentation is that it speaks to whether it's voluntary or whether it's mandatory, what it applies to. And under some of them, it says high rise. I'd like to see that taken out of there, just because with our height restrictions within our official plan, there's no way we would have a high rise in the town. And I think that it sends a mixed message and almost miscommunication to any applicant that comes forward. And I think it could be construed as, well, you have conflicting messaging within the OP. The details speak to, it could apply to a high rise, but yet our height restriction doesn't offer a high rise. And so I think if we eliminated that, that would be a good thing to do. Beyond that, I think this is a great document. I think this is a great step forward, and it's great timing. I mean, we're working on our official plan now. We're doing our review and our update, and I think that, you know, this is something that is a great step to implement through that official plan review. But I do want to point out a bit of a caution to all of us. And this is on a higher level, and this is something that I've advocated for, and I know all of us have, and I know Councilor Thompson has worked on this very hard, and many councillors, many mayors throughout many municipalities in the province, is for the change of legislation when it comes to the tribunal. Because ultimately, these policies that we put in place to ensure that appropriate growth happens in our community, without the change at the tribunal, this is it's basically the worth of it is what the paper's worth. It has no value, because ultimately this can go to the tribunal with an appeal, and they're going to look at it from a provincial policy level. Now, that doesn't mean that this isn't good and that we shouldn't do this. Absolutely, we should be doing this, but we need to continue that fight to make sure that we get those changes at the tribunal. And so we can eliminate that tribunal, so then we have the autonomy to make decisions on appropriate growth for our community. And so we can implement what is written down here that we all agree is great detail for our community. So, Ms. Prime, I thank you very much for the work that you and your team have done. And I'm looking forward to implementing this within our official plan.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Excellent. Councilor Thompson.
Thank you, through you to Ms. Prime and the other consultants. Again, another great presentation and report, and certainly thank you for all your work. And while the recommendation tonight is just to receive, I do note that we'll see the final work in the coming months. I do have a question similar to the mayor, in the sense that while many of these things identified we would like to implement as mandatory, it is true that at the end of the day, the province can overrule municipalities when it comes to development applications and land planning. But I guess from my research, there are other municipalities that have adopted green development standards. What has been the reaction by the development community to these standards? Are they supportive? Are they accepting? Are they resistant? Are these municipalities seeing more appeals go to what was formerly OMB, now the Land Tribunal? Like, what has your experience been in regards to the development community green standards for these other municipalities?
Ms. Prime?
Through you, Madam Chair. Good question. I can tell you, we did get a letter from Build on this particular piece. It was pretty good. Asked for it to be piloted. We are rolling it out in a phased way. I would suggest that in my experience, it's a varied reaction across communities and what happens with implementing green development standards. I think that is matched with experience in general in developing in different municipalities. I think we've struck a really strong balance with this set of standards to focus on what matters to Aurora and what provides a mix of sort of low-hanging fruit as well as a bit of a stretch and a long-term trajectory towards net zero. So I would suggest that in my experience, absolutely, where there's a hearing matter, a green development standard is not left out of the list of items that gets rolled into the requirements. But I also would say that things are transforming, development is transforming, innovation and materials are transforming. We do have to balance affordability and construction and delivering of homes with what gets added, but it's an incremental cost that over my experience in 15 years has continued to come down. So it is achievable and it is seen as somewhat of an expectation now. It's not sort of climate sensitive to be developing without considering a strong set of sustainability and climate-based performance metrics in your development. And I think you'll continue to see that over time. So yes, it does get included in what gets appealed. No, in my experience, it's not the stuff that's the areas of emphasis, but it all rolls together, right? It's not the stuff people generally are fighting the most about.
Thank you. And if I could just follow up through you to Mr. Waters. Mr. Waters, I mean, we certainly heard from Ms. Prime and her experience and perspective. Do you have anything to add based on your experience or what you're hearing from your colleagues in some of these other municipalities and they're dealing with the green development standards, developers, OMB appeals, et cetera?
Mr. Waters?
Thank you, Madam Chair. In my former municipality, they did have a version of the GDS, and it was based on an overall scoring system. So you had to achieve a minimum score. I think it was like bronze, silver, and then gold. But there really were no teeth to implement it. I believe this approach is more feasible and implementable, and it takes it in little chunks versus all at once. It really depends on your OP and how much teeth it has regarding implementation of GDS. I think the town is very fortunate to have a policy that's in the OP that requires GDS to be implemented. So I'm very optimistic that developers will cooperate. Some of these items that are in the categories, the themes are already being implemented. They're just kind of all over the place. So essentially what we've done is we've categorized them and we've raised the bar on some of them. But I think it really depends on which municipality you speak to. I know Richmond Hill has implemented this and Vaughan as well. So I think they've been a little more successful. But I think the trend is towards a GDS program for municipalities to deal with in the environment and sustainability.
Great. And thank you both for your comments. I look forward to further report on this and also the continued work on the OP. That's it.
Great. Thank you, Councilor Thompson. Any other comments or questions? Councilor Gallo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to congratulate all of you on the work. I did sit on one of the sessions, and it's a very thorough report. My only one comment is I was happy to see one of, I guess, the members of the group, project team from Mantel Developments, which are leaders in I guess, responsible development. So I was happy to see them there in that perspective. So I look forward to the next version of the report and for council's implementation. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Gallo. Any other comments or questions? Councilor Gardner. Sorry, Councilor Gardner is still on mute. There you go.
Thank you. Going back to the theme of energy in the 3 section, it says design and construct the building to include high performance components addressing air tightness, glazing, etc. In my research, I found that the easiest thing, I think, the most straightforward, the most effective, and the most measurable is providing better insulation and windows and making sure they're airtight. I don't think this should be in tier 3. I think it should be in tier 1.
Ms. Prime, any comments, considerations, or Mr. Waters, anyone?
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. I appreciate the comment. I think we put that set of requirements. There is a cost for sure associated with higher performance windows, heat pumps, HRV systems that you aren't typically getting in a new home. So this was considered something that, you know, does have an added cost, would be more challenging for some providers to do, and therefore some incentive. But it's a full package of, you know, the sorts of principal home design components that start you on that net zero related path. And so that's why they ended up in tier 3, where they would have some incentive, as opposed to tier 4, which is you've certified and you've actually built a net zero product, something that would require additional incentive. I think you would get a fair bit of pushback to mandate that right now. That said, the way that this is structured, you could over time and based on performance and experience with the standard and implementation, move anything from one tier into another, right? So that's an option you can do quite easily.
Thank you. And through you, Madam Chair, I understand what you're saying, but many of these costs are going to be passed on to the future homeowners. And this one in particular would save a lot of money on energy use and, you know, emissions. So if the homeowner is going to be paying for something up front, they're certainly going to be having the benefits of it, you know, from, I don't know how long windows last, but for a long, long time. So I think this is something that as the construction industry is going to be passing on this particular cost for sure anyway. And I think the homeowners, especially in this time of the world, get it. I think I'd like to see it moved up. In my opinion, it should be in the first tier. Thank you. Under ecology, 3.3. Sorry, this isn't it, but I've been talking about something else for a long time, and it's about parking lots. And we all know from parking our cars in the summer in parking lots, if there's no shade trees, it just can be unbearable to get into the car, and it can be even unbearable to walk through that parking lot. So I would like to see that also moved higher. And that also speaks to the heat island. And, you know, we have a lot of seniors. I think that's a really important one. And I would like to see that higher.
Through you, Madam Chair, we did revise slightly an expectation that included full plantings across rows of parking lots. I think we just tweaked that to ensure there were trees within project limits and around parking to make it a bit more flexible. And I never like to design by infrastructure trucks, whether they're fire or snow plows. But the reality is there sometimes are some challenges with plowing out parking lots and that sort of thing when you've done tree rows in between. So we tried to provide a bit of flexibility on that, but your point is clear. Thank you for that input.
Thank you. And it would be easier, I think, now, because there are a lot of people using smaller cars. And so in a spot that would accommodate a smaller car, there probably would be a place that wouldn't have to be plowed, a place for that, taking up part of that spot that the car wouldn't need to take up. It's just, I see it as very important for quality of life. Thank you. I noticed that in the official plan, it does address noise. And I'm wondering, which this report doesn't, and it's noise and air pollution mitigation policies. And we know how air pollution can affect our breathing, and there's more and more reports on noise and how it affects people's mental and even physical health. So could you just comment on that?
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. I'm going to take back the noise comment to the team, because I thought we talked about that one, and now I can't remember what we may have tweaked relative to that issue, because that was on the discussion. Air pollution is certainly dealt with in the context of ecology, and trying to ensure focus from that perspective. We could consider and a lot of it does show up too as site design related aspects if you're doing site planning details with respect to where trees are located and that sort of thing. We could consider, and we'll talk with Matthew and staff about issues such as, the idling free issue, where cars are parked, that sort of thing, which are, I think, policies you already have. We can sort of reiterate those as well in complete communities. So we'll definitely take those back and look at that further.
Thank you. And I can't remember if I saw it in the official plan or in your report about vibration studies and noise attenuation walls. I think I saw somewhere. Was it in your study?
It definitely was something we have talked about. So we'll take that back and ensure, look at what we've done with it with respect to complete communities.
Thank you, Ms. Prime. Councilor Gardner, just about up on time. Do you have any other questions?
I just want to make a last comment about noise attenuation and then the trees. We have a lot of commercial abutting residential. And I live in one of those, and it's just really difficult because they've planted trees and they've died, and they don't have a noise attenuation wall. And so for quality of life and health, I think that's important when commercial is abutting residential.
Absolutely. Thank you, Councilor Gardner. Appreciate that. Any other comments or questions? All right, I think that's it. Thank you very much for this plan. As you heard around the table, I'm very appreciative of it. It's a great plan, and it's just great to simplify a lot of these actions in the coming near future. to match and just solidify our official plan. So thank you very much for your presentation and education this night for us. May I have, we will need, there's no further comments. I'll call a vote. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Good evening. All right. Oh, all right, everyone. It is time for a break. We will come back in 10 minutes. So we'll see you back here at 9 o'clock. Thanks. Hello, council. I think we're ready to reconvene, restart. We'll move on to item number 8.3, CMS 21-035 Sport Tourism Strategy Update 1. May I have a mover and a seconder to put the item on the floor? Mayor Marakis. Have a seconder? Councillor Kim. Any comments or questions? No comments or questions? Okay, seeing none. Oh, do we have some? Oh, Councillor Gardner. You want to go ahead, Councillor Gardner? Whenever you're ready. Sorry, you're on mute, Councillor Gardner. I just went up, yeah. I guess maybe having some technical difficulties.
How about this?
Perfect. We see you now.
Okay. I mean, it's a great plan, but it's going to cost a lot of money to do what's in this report. I would just like to have a comment from staff on that. I mean, I think we all want this, but I don't know if it's doable.
Absolutely. Mr. Downey? Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. McDougall, my apologies. Ms. McDougall? Thank you. Any comments?
Through you, Madam Chair, and certainly I have Erin Hamilton here, the author of the report, if something is more specific for her. But we recognize, obviously, the outcome of a major investment would have to come back to council for consideration if there was to be an enhancement to a particular facility. So the recommendation number 3 is just to further investigate what that might look like. And certainly if it could be brought back to council for consideration, if that is the path we wish to take. Item number 2 is focused more around some of those existing events that we have to date and how we can expand on supporting them in their existence and maybe enhance a little bit beyond what they normally operate with. Currently, tournaments happen in town, but there isn't that tourism type of connection. And we're hoping that through this representation here and staff's work that they've done, we can certainly coordinate and collaborate that a little bit better with the 2 economic development and sport plan recommendations.
Yeah, thank you. That's great. And, you know, volunteers are mentioned quite a lot in the report and how important they are. But yeah, maybe we can have more community volunteers that help out for various activities. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Gardner. Any other comments or questions? All right. Seeing none, I just want to say thank you very much for the report. Some really good information. I'm really excited about the as Councillor Gardner mentioned, some of the community events that will be utilizing local businesses and hotels, which helps our economic development. So thank you very much for that. May I have all those? We'll call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to item 8.4 PDS 21-137 Promenade Streetscape Needs Assessment. May I have a motion to put that on the floor and a seconder? Councillor Gilliland, a seconder. Councillor Kim, any comments or questions? No, seeing none. Oh, Councillor Gardner.
Thank you. Sorry, that wasn't your fault. I was slow on the draw there, Madam Chair. There's only one thing that I want to say about this, and I've said it before in council. We need street trees. I know that the underground infrastructure is not going to allow that. It would be very expensive, but even above ground trees in planter boxes, we'll have to think of some way. I can't think of any downtown core that doesn't make the use of trees. doesn't use trees to make it more inviting. So I hope we can find a way to do this somehow.
Thank you, Councillor Gartner, and I agree with you. Thank you very much. Councillor Gill. Oh, do you have any other questions, Councillor Gartner?
No, that's trees.
Please. Thank you. Perfect. Councillor Gilliland?
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. Just some comments. I'm glad to see that we are looking at this again, because obviously we need some more refreshed and revised a look of what we need, and especially since the last time we looked at this. I am happy to see that we are consulting with all the advisory committees, different takes on it on all levels through heritage and environment and community engagement, as well as accessible as well. I personally know that I would like to see more green initiatives, whether it be with the kind of materials we use and, be more forward thinking as a downtown that has green components to it, whether it be on the streetscapes or the EV chargers that are upgraded or something to that effect, and some uniformity with, the signage and the colors. I think there's a lot of great things that we can do to improve, but I'm really excited to, hear what, the community has to say in that input, and as well as the BIA. I think that this was presented to them as well. And since they're downtown, definitely they would offer a lot of great input as well. So I look forward to what the results are and reviewing them, and hopefully going forward with some sort of investment in our downtown. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Gilliland. Mayor Marakis. Oh, I'm so sorry. I have more comments. My apologies.
Sorry,
Sorry about that.
I didn't have any more comments. I didn't, but I just got a note that Councillor Gallo was having a connection problem, so he may have comments just in case. I just wanted to throw that out there.
Okay, thank you. All right, Mayor Marakis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I think that we've seen through some of the presentations today, and also some of the stuff that we've talked about. I'd like to say that it's almost the perfect storm brewing for our municipality. We're doing our OP review update, doing our promenade plan update. We're working on our downtown streetscape. So all these things, I think, combined are going to help us build on our past to create an exceptional future for our not only our downtown, but I think for the whole municipality and for our residents. And all I can say to the residents is the best is yet to come.
That's right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Any other comments or questions? I just wanted to add that I'm really excited about this, and Mr. Mayor kind of actually summarized it really well. We are looking at everything again, and really all focusing on improving what we already have, and the best is yet to come, as Mr. Mayor said. I think it's really exciting times. Seeing no other comments or questions, may I call a vote? All in favor? I'm sorry. I'm sorry, are there other comments or questions? I think there might be, maybe Councillor Gallo is looking for. Does anyone know if Councillor, it sounds like he may want to have a few more questions. Anyone can reach him. I don't know what to do. Okay, it looks like he might. Okay, perfect. Yeah, I'm sorry, apologies. I think Councillor Gallo is having problems joining again. And Councillor Gallo, if you're hearing this, we'll absolutely have an opportunity at council to ask some more questions. So sorry about the challenges, and hopefully you'll be able to rejoin shortly. But at this moment, we don't see that he is on. So I think we need to unfortunately carry on. So again, if I'll call the vote, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. All right. We have noticed the motion. There are none. Regional report. There's no regional report, but we do have new business. So may I start on my right, Councillor Gilliland. Under new business. I know they came up quick.
I'm not prepared. I'm so sorry. If you can come back to me.
Sure.
Thanks.
Okay, no problem. Mayor Marakis. Under new business. Okay, perfect. Councillor Kim, new business. Councillor Thompson. All right. Councillor Gartner, under new business. None tonight. And I don't think Councillor Gallo is back yet. Okay, for me under new business, I just have a quick, is that okay? I'm sorry. Oh, Councillor Gilliland, your turn. Yep, go ahead.
Thank you. I just a quick question for Mr. Downey. If you can just give me some quick clarity. I'm just wondering if there's an ETA on when the surfacing of the Shepherd's Bush, through Madam Chair, the Shepherd's Bush resurfacing. I know that's something that we kind of talked about through some correspondence, but I didn't know if there was any kind of timeline to that.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Downey.
I apologize, Madam Chair. I was just waiting to be recognized. So through you, Madam Chair, we are proposing to pave that parking lot in the spring of 2022 prior to the permitting of the artificial turf field.
Great, thank you.
Perfect, thanks. That was the question that I had. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you. And just a quick one for me. I had a resident actually call and ask if we are still moving forward with our single-use plastics, elimination of single-use plastics. And I think there was a motion that the mayor had put forward. If I'm not mistaken, I'm going to dig into this, but if anyone remembers offhand, otherwise I'll ask staff tomorrow to take a. Does anyone remember this, Councillor Kim?
Well, what was passed was that in town facilities, staff, whoever is manning the retail booth would not be offering the single-use plastic unless they were asked. So it wouldn't be out there on display,
right?
Thereby reducing the usage of the single-use plastic. I believe that's what's happening.
That's right. Thank you, Councillor Kim. I remember that. I think they're looking for something a little more town-wide, asking all our retailers to really reduce. So it was just a question. Thank you very much for that. Okay, that's it. Any for public service announcements? How about I start on my left? Councillor Thompson, Councillor Kim, public servants, Mayor Marakis.
Speaking of plastics, do you have what it takes to give up single-use plastics, idle less, or shower quicker? Until November 30th, join us for our first ever community Go Green Challenge. And for more information, visit aurora.ca/go green. The town's winter 2022 program guide has programs and activities for all ages and will be distributed to all Aurora households with the banner on November 4th. Online registration starts on November 8th. For more details, visit aurora.ca/rec guide. Aurora's overnight winter parking restrictions take effect from November 15th to April 15th. During this time, please do not park on the road between 2 a.m. and 6 a.m. For more information, please visit aurora.ca/winter parking. And exciting news, this is better than the parking. So Aurora Santa Under the Stars Parade is back, and it's an actual parade this year. And I do want to thank staff for all the effort in making sure that this was able to happen again. I know with the announcement from the province that we were essentially allowed to have this in the outdoor gatherings opened up. Staff did a tremendous job in stepping up to the plate and moving very quickly, because I know a lot of other municipalities were unable to make this change, and we were able to do it. And so I thank staff for being able to put this on. This is going to be a great parade, and I think the residents deserve this, want this, and it's going to be an exciting night under the stars. So I'm looking forward to seeing everyone there. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yay, that's fantastic news. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Gilliland, public service announcement.
Thank you. I just wanted to let everybody know there's a lot of great things going on through the Aurora Cultural Center. I do know that they have a concert that is happening this Friday from 7:30 to 9 at the Armory. Barbara Licha live and in person. And this is wonderful that we're having a concert that's happening in person. So this is wonderful. So go check them out at Aurora Cultural Center. There's many other things that are going on throughout the month of November, including workshops. And I really encourage everybody to take advantage of the great things that we've got to offer. Thanks.
Great. Thank you so much. Councillor Gartner, public service announcement.
Thank you. I'd just like to add on to that and thank the Cultural Center. I don't know how they do it, but they just keep coming up with more and more great things for the community. So big thanks. Also a big thanks to the special event team. I did visit the haunted greenhouse. It was sufficiently scary. And there were so many staff dressed up in costumes, and it just was terrific. So I know Shelley Ware doesn't like to be thanked, but thanks anyway. And I know you have a great team. And also it's Ontario Garlic Week. And I know that local businesses were asked to create, you know, a special garlic recipe. So that goes on until the 7th of November.
Wonderful.
That's all for me.
Thank you so much, Councillor Gartner. And I believe Mr. Mayor has one more for us.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I missed this one. I think it's an important one. Although, Councillor Gardner, I did want to say that at the region, we always, the chairman always talks about
I know.
It's donut day, or it's
I know.
funny that you brought up garlic day. So we don't normally do that here at the local level, but I appreciate you bringing that up. I think this one's important. Obviously, we just finished a federal election. We have a provincial election coming, but we also have our election, municipal, coming up in the fall of 2022. And it's important for everyone to understand that we are switching to a ward system. And when residents will be voting, they'll be voting in the 2022 municipal election. They'll be voting for a mayor and one ward councillor who represents their ward. And so if any resident wants to find out which ward that they live in, they can visit aurora.ca/wards. It's a very interactive page where you just plug in your address and it'll tell you exactly which ward you're in. So, and I think this is something that we're gonna have to get out there. We're gonna have to continue. And so I'd ask each of you if we can continue to pass that message along to all the residents, because it's something that they're gonna need to know for the next election. So thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And just in case, is Councillor Gallo back online? No. All right. Sorry about that, Councillor Gallo. Just for me, two things. Just thank you very much. The Aurora Farmers Market was their last day last Saturday. It was fantastic. I have to thank the farmers market. They put on a great farmers market this year, as always, but they actually had the single best year ever. And it just was so wonderfully put on. And I know staff had everything to do with it. They made sure that there wasn't a safety concern. Everything was run smoothly. The farmers market adhered to all the rules. And I can't thank staff enough. It's all our leadership team. Everyone had an area to play in this. And the way everything rolled out, I can't thank you all enough. So through you, Mr. Nadarasi, your team has been really exceptional to be able to put this on. And I'm telling you, they set the stage for safety standards during these difficult times, and we're able to create a template for other markets, including the Toronto market. They actually used the town's template on how to put on a safe market, and it worked very well for them. And I'm sure that the Santa Claus Parade will go without a hitch due to all the learnings and everything else. So thank you so very much. And I had something else, but I will save it for another time. But before I call adjournment, I meant to do this before we started our meeting, and that was to call for a motion to adjourn from our closed session report. So I'll adjourn this one and then come back. Okay, so may I have a motion to adjourn this meeting? At the moment, Councillor Gilliland, Councillor Kim, all in favor, opposed, meeting adjourned. Thank you very much. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk, we're reporting out of closed session. We have one item, 4.1.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, reporting out of closed session, just one item. The motion is to receive the report and that council or confidential direction to staff be confirmed.
Thank you. Can I get someone to move that? Councillor Humphreys, seconded by Councillor Kim. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, record a vote. Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Record a vote for the only item of council reporting out of closed session. Mayor Maracas, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Humphreys, how do you vote? Yes. Councillor Humphreys votes yes. Councillor Gartner, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Councillor Gilliland? Councillor Gilliland votes yes. Councillor Gallo is absent. Councillor Kim? Yes. Councillor Kim votes yes, and Councillor Thompson? Yes. Councillor Thompson votes yes, the motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Confirming bylaw. Someone like to move that? Councillor Gilliland, Councillor Humphreys. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Motion to adjourn. Councillor, sorry, it's tougher from this seat. Sorry, guys. Councillor Gilliland, Councillor Kim, all those in favor? Opposed? That carries.